These are the two kings of the DJI drone world. We've got the DJI Air 3S and we've got the DJI Mavic 3 Pro. Which one should you get and which one is right for you? What's going on, guys? My name is Dan Davis and I'm the creative director here on DansTube.TV, which is Australia's #1 drone YouTube channel. So first things first, let's get it straight. They're both great drones and you're going to be happy with either one. Now, it's hard to suggest which one to go for because it always depends on price. It depends on what your budget is and it depends on what your needs are. Now, the Air 3S does have some very unique offers, but so does the Mavic 3 Pro. The Air 3S has two camera systems. It's got a wide angle 1-inch sensor and it's got a 70mm zoom camera system. So you've got the option to go with digital zoom up to 9 times, which is great, and 1-inch sensor, and then we've got a 1/1.3-inch 70mm sensor on it. 50 megapixel stills when we're talking the main camera system, and 48 megapixel stills when we're talking that telephoto camera system. It's got 14 stops of dynamic range, and it can capture 4K 60 FPS in HDR, and it can also capture 4K 120 frames in slow motion. So some great options available on the Air 3S. Looking at the Mavic 3 Pro, this has got 3 camera system. So you can see that this is the more expensive, this is the older brother of the Air 3S. And so some of the big benefits here is that we do get adjustable aperture. So on the Air 3S, it's locked, it's got fixed aperture. So that's a huge calling card for professional filmmakers, people who really want to get the most out of their videos and their images. This is a huge one here. And it does have 3 camera systems, like I said. So it's got the 4/3 camera system, which is bigger than the 1-inch sensor. So the main camera system on the Mavic 3 Pro is an improvement over the Air 3S. We then get a 70mm telephoto camera system, which is a 1/1.3-inch sensor, same sensor as the Air 3S. And so that's a 3 times optical. But then we get a 28 times hybrid zoom, which is the 7 times optical zoom. And that is a 1/2-inch sensor. So you've got 3 different unique sensors here. They work really well together. So if you are a professional filmmaker or you want to take drones really seriously, this is the one to get. But the thing that always comes to mind is this overkill for a lot of people? So for me, the Air 3S is great because that 70mm camera system is actually my preferred camera system. So when we're looking at the 7 times on here on the Mavic 3 Pro, which is a 1/2-inch sensor, I find that I don't use that one as much. I find that I prefer the clarity of the 70mm camera systems, right? Like, I'm not a professional by any means. I create YouTube content and yeah, I create a lot of drone content, but you know, I'm not doing it in like a real estate space, or I'm not doing it for short films or anything like that. So that's where maybe you would consider a Mavic 3 Pro for the camera system. It does definitely have an improvement here when we talk camera systems on the Mavic 3 Pro. So they both can capture 10-bit video, which is gorgeous and it looks phenomenal. But the thing that's unique, the Air 3S has got 14 stops of dynamic range. The Mavic 3 Pro has 12.8 stops of dynamic range. So you've got an improvement here with the Air 3S's dynamic range. When we talk obstacle avoidance here, they both have omnidirectional obstacle avoidance. So they can both avoid obstacles in any direction that you can imagine. The unique offering here though comes on the Air 3S. So it's actually got a LiDAR sensor on the front as well as infrared sensors on the base. So that means that it can pick up on really anything regardless of the actual lighting condition. So let's say that there's a candle 1 meter in front of the drone. That's what it can actually recognize, which is just phenomenal stuff, really. So that means that it's got the advanced return to home, meaning that let's say you're flying for a sunset, which is a very common scenario for drone pilots. This drone is going to be able to return back to you and avoid trees and buildings, regardless of how low light the situation is. And this also means that in active track, when it's tracking something, a boat, a car, or you, that it's also going to do a great job in low light situations. So that is probably the benefit, I would say, here of the Air 3S, which is huge compared to the Mavic 3 Pro. So both drones have a very similar battery life. We've got 43 minutes with the Mavic 3 Pro and the Air 3S has got 45 minutes. So you're apparently getting 2 minutes more with the Air 3S. Keep in mind, realistically, they're both getting maybe 38, 35 minutes roughly in a typical kind of scenario where you actually have to fly it back and land it. You know, still both phenomenal, but keep that in mind that you are getting slightly more battery life with the Air 3S here. They both fly really well. They both have some awesome flight modes. So you can use waypoints, cruise control. They've got all sorts of quick shot modes. They've got tracking modes and all sorts of fun things. The Air 3S does have the fun Active Track 360, so it does quite a unique job of tracking you in all sorts of orientations. So you can get it to track in an outer circle. You can get it to do all sorts of fun stuff. The Mavic 3 Pro still has a very cool Active Track mode, which is available to it, but the waypoints and all of that stuff, very similar offering between both of these drones here. If you are interested in the DJI Air 3S or another another drone from DJI, maybe another camera system, then definitely check my links down below. If you're based in Australia, you can go to DJI Australia, which is d1store.com.au, use the code DansTube on their website, and you can save on most drones, cameras, and accessories. I'll also have some other links down below for my international audience, so check those all out. They will be down there. The Mavic 3 Pro can capture 5.1K video up to 50 frames per second. And like I said, it's got adjustable aperture of f2.8 to f11. So that main camera system is a standout. Now, the other two camera systems on the Mavic 3 Pro, the 70mm camera system is a 1/1.3" sensor, and it can capture 4K up to 60 frames per second. It can also capture 48 megapixel stills. And the hybrid zoom camera, as they call it, which is the 1/2" sensor, it's a 7x optical. It's got a f3.4 fixed aperture, and it can capture 12 megapixel stills with 4K 60 frames per second. So the three cameras on the Mavic 3 Pro are quite unique, but that main camera system on the Mavic 3 Pro is clearly the standout here, and it trumps every other camera system on these two drones. The Air 3S is still no pushover because it can capture 4K 60 frames per second HDR on both camera systems, regardless of what you're doing. And both camera systems can capture 4K up to 120 frames per second in slow motion, and they do have that dynamic range of 14 stops. So both camera systems on the Air 3S are actually quite similar, which I really like. I find that the 7x on the Mavic 3 Pro does look slightly different, and it has a different feel to it, where I find the main camera system and the 70mm on both the Mavic 3 Pro and the Air 3S work really well together. The Mavic 3 Pro can still capture that 4K 120 frames per second in slow-mo as well, which is really nice. And again, I find the camera systems work nicely together. Everything on both drones is phenomenal. Like, that's the thing that's so hard to recommend one over the other. I'm leaning more towards the Air 3S for most people, because I think that for a lot of people that are capturing sunsets, a lot of people that want that improved safety of the LiDAR sensor, you're probably going to be happy with the Air 3S. I think that if you're really taking it seriously, if you're professional and you're getting paid to do drone work, the Mavic 3 Pro is definitely the one to go for. If you've got the money, if you've got the need for a more advanced drone, something like this with the adjustable aperture, 5.1K, you've got a micro four thirds system, you've got some really cool features on it. The Mavic 3 Pro is the improvement. It is the better drone overall in really all situations. Like, besides slightly losing when it comes to the dynamic range and not having a LiDAR sensor, for example, and a few other like software things that are available on the Air 3S, the Mavic 3 Pro still offers a rich experience, and it is the drone to go for if you're a professional. Now, with all of that being said, that doesn't mean that the Air 3S can't be used if you're a professional, because I think it still is a viable option for, you know, real estate content out there. If you're creating like a short film, for example, if you are taking your drone seriously, the Air 3S is no pushover. It still is a professional drone. It just does not have that adjustable aperture. It doesn't have the three camera systems, obviously. You can only capture up to 4K 60. You can't go to 5K. But besides that, I mean, this is still a really viable professional drone. It's a huge upgrade for people wanting to go from a mini drone to this, for example. That I think is a really nice progression from like a Mini 4, for example. Maybe something like a Mini 3 Pro even is more realistic, up to an Air 3S. I think that's a really nice upgrade. So hard to say which one's right for you. Depends obviously on your needs. Let me know in the comments below and I'll help you out. I think they're both phenomenal. They both offer something unique and well worth looking into both of them and figuring out which one's right for you. Hopefully this video has helped though, and I'll chat to you in the next one. Peace.